Who do you think the source is? We know for a fact that Steve Thomas spoke to the Ramsey housekeeper. Have a look at this excerpt from the 1997 police interview. Steve Thomas: Patsy, once we were told that Burke at times would walk through the house whittling, and that was something that apparently got on Linda Hoffman's nerves somehow to clean up after him. Linda Hoffman is obviously the housekeeper. Patsy Ramsey: right. Now she's not saying very much here, right? Steve Thomas: was this consistent with his little pocket knife? Patsy Ramsey: yeah. Steve Thomas: he'd walk through the house whittling, and for the tape, I'm showing Patsy a photo of a little red Swiss Army knife. Patsy Ramsey: right. He had one, we had gotten him in Switzerland. It had his name on it. Does this have his name on it? Steve Thomas: I don't know. Patsy Ramsey: you don't know? Okay. Steve Thomas: and I've spoken with Linda, and she's identified this suitcase as belonging to, well, not necessarily belonging to, but a suitcase that she has used and that John Andrew has used, and that John Andrew likely had left at your house. Patsy Ramsey: right. Steve Thomas: do you recognize that blue suitcase? Patsy Ramsey: yes. It's also interesting how Linda seems to remember things differently to John Ramsey. For example, who the suitcase belonged to. Apparently the intruder might have brought that with him as well. Well, that's now. Now that amnesia has set in, now it appears we can allow for that possibility too.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime.
Is this even your suitcase? Do you know what this is?
Yeah, it's been so long ago, I don't know if that was our suitcase or not.
But that's not what John said in 1998, or what Patsy said in 1997, or what the housekeeper said in 1997. Tell me, are we really so incapable of seeing evil even when we're looking at it right in the face? Are we really so bad at subtlety that when you remove even a few of the dots that you're trying to join, you end up with a ruined symphony, a galaxy of falling stars? So can you see this is yet another instance of how the narrative seems to be evolving over time. Now, you, like Vargas and Berlinger, might snigger and snort at Steve Thomas's theory that Patsy Ramsey was involved, but the housekeeper who testified to the grand jury basically testified to that as well. And guess what? The grand jury essentially preferred her testimony, the housekeeper's testimony, to Lou Smith and John Douglas's theories. Lou Smith is the hero, of course, of the Netflix series, but the grand jury didn't find him as compelling as the housekeeper, possibly because she lived and moved and interacted directly with the entire family inside their home, whereas Lou Smith never did. And so this is, I believe, the how, the where, the when, but more specifically the who of what led to Steve Thomas believing what he ended up believing. Look at this article in the Denver Post. Ex-housekeeper says Patsy Ramsey killed JonBenet. A federal judge Thursday gave grand jury witnesses permission to talk about their secret testimony, prompting the Ramsey family's former housekeeper to declare that Patsy Ramsey killed her 6-year-old daughter. Former Ramsey housekeeper Linda Hoffman-Pugh, speaking publicly for the first time about her testimony before the Boulder County grand jury, told reporters Thursday she thought Patsy Ramsey had killed JonBenet. Both Steve Thomas and the housekeeper were using excellent information, first-hand knowledge, in some cases first-hand experience, and some very intimate facts. They were basing what they were saying on what someone saw directly. Unfortunately, they took this very detailed, very important information and, in my opinion, misapplied it, very likely because of the governing psychology that whoever wrote the note killed JonBenet. Going back to the article, the grand jury seemed to zero in on Patsy Ramsey, and she thought it would indict her. A Swiss Army knife was found in the basement room where JonBenet's body was found. Only Patsy could have put that knife there. I took it away from Burke and hid it in a linen closet near JonBenet's bedroom. An intruder never would have found it. Patsy would have found it cleaning out clean sheets. Now, I have a different interpretation here, where she says only Patsy could have put that knife there. Well, not if Patsy gave the knife to Burke. Pieces of rope were tied around JonBenet's neck and wrist when her body was discovered. The blanket wrapped around JonBenet's body had been left in the dryer. There was still a Barbie doll nightgown clinging to the blanket, so it had to have come out of the dryer recently, according to the housekeeper. Only Patsy would have known it was in the dryer, she said. An intruder never would have found the door to the basement room where JonBenet's body was discovered. It was too difficult to see unless someone knew it was there, she said. Now, unlike Linda Arndt, it seemed to take the housekeeper a while for the penny to drop. At first, I didn't want to believe that Patsy could do such a thing, said the 57-year-old Platteville resident who now delivers newspapers. I loved her, meaning I loved Patsy, but as time went on, things came to me that made me think she did it. I want Patsy Ramsey tomorrow to look in the mirror and say to herself, I killed JonBenet. And those were the housekeeper's words at the time. Now, I disagree with them, but one of the most insightful comments from the housekeeper is this one. She said that she told the grand jury that Patsy had become very moody right before Christmas of 1996. I think she had multiple personalities. She'd be in a good mood and then she'd be cranky. She got into arguments with JonBenet about wearing a dress or about a friend coming over. I had never seen Patsy so upset. It's quite an interesting comment about a friend coming over. I wonder which friend JonBenet wanted to come over, and I wonder why that might have been a problem. Then she said, I don't believe Patsy meant to kill her. I truly believe it was an accident that just continued, said Hoffman-Pugh, who worked in the Ramsey house until 3 days before the slaying on December 26th and testified before the grand jury in January 1999. This is actually very astute reasoning from the housekeeper, that it wasn't intentional murder, something Steve Thomas has echoed as well. I actually subscribe to the same idea, that whoever killed JonBenet didn't do so on purpose. And that's very different to these cynical journos and documentary filmmakers who see nothing but creepy pedophiles coming out of the woods and someone deliberately, purposefully, and quote-unquote professionally executing JonBenet. Don't make me laugh. This article also clearly states who the housekeeper thought wrote the ransom note. What do you think the answer is? Because if anyone knew, wouldn't she know? Wouldn't she be in the best position to have a good idea of who wrote the ransom note? Because Patsy left her handwritten notes all the time. I mean, wasn't that what the writing pad was there for to begin with? And why not? Patsy had majored in journalism at West Virginia University way back when. Going back to the article, Hoffman-Pugh on Thursday handed out a packet of what she said were 6 handwriting experts' analyses of Patsy Ramsey's handwriting samples. All 6 said it was highly probable that Patsy wrote the ransom note, which was found in the Ramsey house about 6 hours before the body was found in the basement, she said. Hoffman-Pugh said she's convinced Patsy wrote the ransom note. The Ramseys have never produced a written handwriting report, Hoffman-Pugh said. Now, I'm not sure if that part is accurate because, we know that Patsy gave something like 5 samples, and so maybe that simply wasn't presented to the grand jury. But to give you an idea of just the importance of the housekeeper's testimony, she testified for 8 hours before the grand jury. Her attorney, Dana Hoffman, said a written handwriting report from the Ramseys is the single most important piece of evidence that's still missing from this case. The only thing they've given is an oral report and oral denial, and I think that is as far as he was aware. In the same report, which has been scrubbed online, and we only have it because another publication republished it, while we see apparent confirmation that a third Ramsey investigator did testify, Ellis Armistead. I do wonder whether everything in this report is accurate. By the way, does anyone not know who Jane Harmer is? She's a very underestimated investigator in this case. If you want me to talk about her, let me know in the comments. In this analysis, I wanted to show you just how rubbish the sneering attitude to Steve Thomas is, and as far as I'm concerned, how misinformed it is, where journalists come to a story after the fact and then in hindsight think they know so much better than the actual investigators. In this case, even the grand jury, they feel they know better than the grand jury who heard so much of the evidence over 13 months. And so the journalists think they know better, even in a scenario where the case remains unsolved.
Do we really think that with a garrote around her neck, a very sophisticated choking device, and do we really think that over a bedwetting incident, which is Steve Thomas's theory, that, in a fit of rage, John Bonet was accidentally killed by her mother because she wet her bed?
Yeah.
Ask them who they think killed John Bonet, and I can almost guarantee they'll say they don't know. That is, in a sense, arguably the dumbest position of all to have, especially if you've been covering this case for 28 years. Ask John Ramsey today who he thinks killed John Bonet. I think I saw an interview where he was asked that and he said, I don't know. So mocking the detectives won't solve the case. And if there's a strategy to intentionally fail to solve the case, this is the one we see repeated again and again by John Ramsey year in and year out. But hey, apparently it's still the best strategy out there in the minds of the media. Let's tell that tired old story again. The police botched the investigation. There was a media circus. It was so unfair. And let's pretend it's brand new and crow gleefully about our intelligence vis-a-vis everyone else, even while failing to say anything new or original about a 28-year-old case. Really? Mocking the police won't solve the case. But it sure feels good, don't it, Netflix? I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.